We have news today from Yamaha, which is usually Alex's favorite news, especially when it's about an MT-09, because that's a bike that you used to have.
Yeah, I love MT-09 news. This is a bike I had in my garage for a while. I have an XSR 900 in the garage right now, but anything that's got this CP3 in it, I'm a big fan of. And we have a new 2024 MT-09 with a lot of new features thrown at it.
Yeah, and this is just a revision. It's not an all-new bike, so you're looking at basically same chassis, same general suspension setup. You're going to be the same 890cc CP3 because that engine was updated not that long ago, so probably not going to see an update on that for a while. But they have changed a few things, and they've revised a few of the things that are even carried over a little bit, like the suspension. So it's still fully adjustable 41 millimeter inverted KYB forks, and you still get that adjustable KYB rear shock, but they upped the spring rates a little bit. They revised the damping. And they also changed up the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, so same like brake discs and braking components, but you now have a Brembo radial master cylinder up front on the handlebar, which again, like my XSR 900 I have in the garage, that was one of the big changes for that bike, and now that's trickling over here. And one of the other really big changes that I like to see is these new acoustic vents like the MT-10s. So there's a new intake system on this bike. Again, same motor, but they did revise the intake, and now there's these acoustic vents at the top of the tank, which kind of pumps some intake sound back towards the rider. And when I had a chance to ride both the standard MT-10 and the MT-10 SP, that was one of my favorite features of that bike, is how the sound just pumps into your helmet. And it makes sense because Yamaha, I mean, their logo is a tuning fork.
Yeah,
so
they make instruments.
They care a lot about sound.
Yeah, and that's cool too, because that gets you some more induction noise, so you hear the motor from the intake side and not just the exhaust if you do an aftermarket pipe. That's a good noise too, but it's kind of cool to have the combination of both of them, and having those intakes right there at the top of the tank means it's pretty close to your head, so you actually hear some decent sound from them. Now, another really nice update that they've made to this bike is this new 5-inch TFT, and we just saw them add that to the XSR 900 GP that we just did a video on last week. So this new 5-inch TFT is starting to make its way into some of their other models.
Yeah, so a lot more information. You go from a 3.5 to a 5-inch TFT. Obviously with the bigger size, easier to see the things you want to look at, but there's new features there too. So first of all, it connects to your phone, so you can link up, both your cell phone and your helmet communicator and run all your audio through the bike. But also, one of the big new features is Garmin navigation. So still a little bummed out that you don't have like CarPlay or Android Auto or anything, but you can pay for this Garmin navigation app. It's not very expensive, and then you have built-in nav right on the dash of your bike. You don't need to mount your cell phone to the handlebar. It can stay in your pocket, and that's a pretty cool feature.
Yeah, that is nice. And the other cool thing is that they've revised, along with that screen, some of the switchgear on the handlebars, which is cool. So it just makes it a little bit easier and more intuitive to navigate that screen. And then something that I like is that with that new switchgear, there's a new turn signal indicator that lets you do a light press, and it gives you 3 flashes for your turn signal like you get in most modern cars, which is kind of a cool feature to have on a bike, not something that you see on a lot of motorcycles.
Yeah, we saw the same thing on the XSR 900 GP, and to me, this is a feature that's going to trickle down to pretty much every bike Yamaha makes. It just makes sense for them to do that. And yeah, I leave my turn signal on all the time. I mentioned that in the last video, so that's going to save.
Yeah, the quick flash for just a quick lane change is super nice to have. Something else that they've done that makes this a little bit more user-friendly is an easier system for the different riding modes. So now you've got Sport, Street, and Rain, plus 2 custom modes that you can set up yourself. And the good thing about that is that you don't have to memorize what all the different modes mean in the earlier system. It just wasn't labeled quite as intuitively.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of times bikes use letters or numbers, and I hate that because especially with motorcycles, a lot of people have multiple bikes, and it's when you're riding multiple bikes in the same week, it's impossible to remember, even if you own them, what the different modes do. So I'm glad to see that they're named. And you also have a new, what they're calling a back slip regulator, which uses the engine RPM and the wheel speed sensor in the rear to reduce rear wheel lockup under engine braking. It sounds like the previous slide control system that's been around on this bike for a long time, but that's one of those things we'll have to throw a leg over it and get some practice with it.
Yeah, it sounds like they've probably refined that system a little bit. I mean, it sounds basically like drag torque control that you get on a lot of different motorcycles, but I'm sure they've made some updates to it that, again, will be easier to figure out once we've actually ridden the bike. Now, there's also a new cruise control system.
Yeah, so previously cruise control was reserved for the MT-09 SP, the kind of special version, the more expensive one, and we'll get to that at the end of this video. But now cruise control is standard on the MT-09. I believe it works in third gear or higher and above like 25 miles per hour. So I wish it worked in first and second gear, because third gear on the MT-09 is a pretty good pace if you're,
yeah.
you know, sometimes you want cruise control around like 30 miles an hour in second gear, but take what we can get.
Now, another one of the big changes on this bike is the styling, and, you know, just arguably a little controversial. I mean, I know this headlight layout isn't your favorite.
No, I don't know. For some reason, the MT-09 I owned was that kind of eagle eye thin headlight one, and I think since that design, the headlights have gone a little downhill. And I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. This reminds me a little of that new Suzuki, the 8S, the GSX 8S. It's got kind of a boxy design. And the tank design reminds me of the old FZ07s. So they kind of went from this really flat, wide tank, and they've kind of given it that side pod look. I don't know, it looks like that first generation FZ07 to me. So a little more angular, a little more boxy, and I don't know. I'll say the photos aren't selling me on the headlight. I haven't seen it in person yet.
Yeah, and it's good to withhold judgment until we get to see these bikes actually in the metal. But at least in terms of color scheme, still a very similar color scheme. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see it actually up close. And it's worth too talking about pricing. These start MSRP at $10,599, and that's an $800 increase over last year. But especially with that new TFT and the revised braking system and some extra tech, I think it's worth $800.
Yeah, totally. And it's, you know, it's closer to the SP model, which was more than $800, because you get that cruise control, you get a little bit of a stiffer suspension, probably not quite as good as what came on the SP, but yeah, I mean, bikes always go up in price every year, and it's good to see that you're getting more for your money. It's not just because of the economy that the bike's gone up.
Exactly.
You don't get anything back out of that.
And there's a few different colors that you can spec on this. There's Matte Raven Black, there's Midnight Cyan, and there's Team Yamaha Blue. And so far, no word yet on an SP model.
Yeah, not yet. Again, that retailed at $11,499 previously, so now there's only a $900 gap between this and the previous SP model. The SP is still listed on Yamaha's website right now, but it's the older style design, so we'll just have to wait and see if they decide to bring out a new SP with even better suspension, and they're probably going to have to do a little more, because before it was just suspension, paint, and cruise control. And now if it's got better suspension and it's got cruise control, they're going to have to do it a little more.
Yeah.
So we'll see if we even get that model here. But for now, that's the 2024 Yamaha MT-09, and should be available right around the corner.
Yeah, and it's something that we'll probably be throwing a leg over sometime soon. So keep your eyes peeled for a video on that, and let us know what you guys think down in the comments below.
There you go. Thanks for watching. Check out alltfl.com. Catch you in the next video.